What's up, Wholesale Nation? This is Andre King.
And I'm Andy Speed.
And welcome to the show. It's been a while since we've been on the ones and twos.
It's been a long while. It's been a couple of months probably.
Yeah, so we took a little bit of a break, as I guess you can say, over the last, it's been a little over a month and a half, I guess it's been since we've done some recordings. But glad to be back on and, giving some information. And so what's been going on over the last month?
It's a lot of hiring.
A lot of hiring,
a lot of training, a lot of moving parts, some marketing changes, and, how we've done some stuff differently with the lead management. So just complete process overhauls and hiring. So it's been a busy couple of months.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, definitely over the last month and a half, and that's what we've been busy. And we got a new, new transaction coordinators, new processes, and we're and dialing this stuff down. It's going to be one of the topics that I'm going to talk about today.
And a new rock star lead manager.
Yeah, rock star lead manager as well. Who is that?
AKA me.
Yeah. So Andy's been, taking the phone calls live. And again, he's proved that he is the best lead manager in the house.
Less appointments, more contracts.
Hey, that's the way to do it. So really qualifying the lead. So what do you think you're doing different?
I'm used to, I bought a couple of houses, so
right.
I know how to have the conversation, know how to get a good read, know how to get people talking. Of course, the angry sellers still piss me off a little bit.
Right.
Saturday was a rough day for me. I took a couple of phone calls and they were not happy, but it's a reflection on them, not me. So
right.
I just get over it. But I just think knowing what to say, getting them talking.
Right. And the funny thing is, when you haven't done it in a while, same thing with me is, I'm making some of the follow-up calls, things like that. Andy's taking the inbound. And when you first get back in the swing of things, you're like, man, it's like this person just pissed me the hell off. And the funny thing, I was listening to a call that Andy had, and this guy you could tell this guy just disturbed the hell out of him. Yeah. And so I was like, man, I was listening to it. I was just like, hang up the phone, just hang up the phone. That's what I was thinking about when I was listening to it.
Let me tell you how you're screwing up.
Yeah. And so we know it's not about, the person. The person's just upset about something else in life. And but yeah, it's been fun actually getting back into the actual grind of things. But looking forward to replacing ourselves. We've taken a while to look for the right people. Mm-hmm. Right, and hire the right people and get the right people in the right seats, and we won't rush to fill that position.
Yeah, I'm not in any hurry to get rid of the inbound.
Yeah.
I find that it works for me when I'm working with the sales, our sales team.
Right,
being able to help them tee up the lead and identify what kind of person it is, what's important to them. All the questions that you're really not going to get from just a normal lead manager.
Right.
So yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think the experience part of it is that we've taken probably a quarter of the appointments, right, and gotten more contracts, which is that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So that means that we're doing
it's results, baby.
Yeah, that's what it all boils down to, right? And at the end of the day, the salespeople they save gas. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not running all over the place. Now, some of that's not on purpose. Now, we probably got more phone calls and things that we could make, but we're definitely getting better at it. At the same time, we were able to hire, we have a new transaction coordinator / production assistant that's helping us out with this podcast today also. So Javier came in and joined us a little over, it's been about a couple weeks ago now. Javier's been in here?
Probably 2 or 3 weeks.
All right, perfect. So he's been learning the ropes and, learning that sellers can sometimes be a little shady and not give you what they say they're going to give you. So it's been fun, right? Yeah. So glad to be back on the mic and talking to you guys. So with that said, today's topic, we wanted to go over a lot of people are asking, we see a lot of new wholesalers, even people who have been doing it for a while, and it always comes up as what should they have done? What are the things they wish they would have known?
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
And so last month, this is actually one of the topic of our meetup, and it caused both of us to reflect for a couple of days and really think about what we wish we would have known, going into the business. And there's always that, not necessarily regret, but there's that hindsight. If I would have known what I know now, I would have done things differently.
Right.
Like somebody may have built out a massive flipping company, And then they're like, man, if I would have known what I do now,
right,
I would have just kept them all.
Yeah. You would have just sped up the process, right? And you would have fast forward and skipped all the heartaches and the pain, right?
Right. Or the guy that goes and spends 3 years building a wholesale business and says, oh, I just did that because I want to be a flipper.
Right.
Like, well, you didn't have to do that. You could have just went straight to flipping.
Right.
Money is not a constraint in this market.
No, and the whole purpose of this is so that you can fast forward, right? So we can learn from the mistakes that we've made or the shortcomings and things like that, and take that and you can skip it, and you can jump ahead a lot faster, right? And get your business flowing, right? And so that's what we're going to discuss today, right? And so what do we want to start with?
It's something interesting about that though. I'm going to step back just a little bit. Like, you ever heard money can't buy happiness?
Yeah,
you ever heard a rich person say that?
Most of the time, no. I can't say I've heard him say that.
So when you hear a rich person say that, you want to believe it. You're like, oh man, but then on that same token, you're like, no, I need to experience that for myself. So we're going to have some of that, like, we're going to give some advice. And I know I received some advice when I started, and it took me 2 years to absorb it.
Right.
So that's kind of what I would expect for some new wholesalers to experience. Like, oh, no. Mm-hmm. When you talk about skipping that $3,000 assignment to go make my 15, there is no 15 right now.
Right.
But there won't be, because you're focused on the 3.
Right.
So maybe a new wholesaler won't get everything that we're saying now. Mm-hmm. Maybe it might take some time. You need to have the right ears to be able to hear and listen to what we're saying.
Right.
Some of it is an opinion. It's not fact.
No.
But it's just our experience. So we're happy to share that with you guys.
Right. And that's what it's all about. Right. And so, I'll go ahead and get it kicked off. So I'll start with, what's the first thing I wish I would have knew? And so for me, when I started this business, of course, I started off wholesaling. Andy started off flipping. All right. And I didn't go pay for education. Not there's anything wrong with that. But when I first heard about wholesaling, I started Googling and jumped on YouTube. Right. And there was a guy that I listened to, and he had like a ton of like YouTube videos, things like that. And I went through he had 100 YouTube videos. I went through all 100. Okay. And so that was in like August of that year I got started. It was in October. I still hadn't done anything. So it was at August, September, October, right? I was still learning about wholesaling, is what most people are doing. And, but I hadn't done anything. Okay. I hadn't sent any marketing. The first thing he said to do was, you need to send bandit signs, right? He also mentioned direct mail and a bunch of other stuff. Right. And so after I went through all of those videos, thinking that I guess in my mind, I felt like, okay, if I go through all this, I'm gonna know exactly what to do and I'll be able to get a deal done. Right. Well, guess what? At the end of the day, I ended up doing the same marketing that he talked about, right? 3 months prior.
You can hit pause on video 1.
Yeah, I could have just stopped there and say, okay, go do this. And then I should have just went and did it. And guess what? After I went through all those videos, when the phone rang the first time, I still froze the hell up. So it didn't even make a difference, right? So I did all that work looking at all these videos. Not as bad as
your first public speaking.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as that. Okay. I didn't like almost pass out, but at the end of the day, I could have just jumped in, and that's when I really learned. When I took the first phone calls, when I learned, right? Yeah. Same thing with my first appointment. All right. I went through all those videos, but when I got to my first appointment, I didn't even know what to take. Right. I was like, what do I take? I had to jump online and figure that out. But it was going to the appointment, going through the steps and going through the reps is where I really started learning. Now, you don't want to be just ignorant. All right. So at the end of the day, I went to my first appointment, and even then I didn't know what to bring. Right. And so the whole point of this is that you don't have to know all the steps to doing this thing. You really learn from doing the action. Right. And had I known that when I first got started, I would have moved into action from the first video that I saw, and I would have been months ahead versus stalling, waiting 3 months. And it only took me 3 months after that to get my first deal. Right. And so at the end of the day, I could have gotten that deal a lot faster. But what I found is that, maybe I was the lucky one. A lot of people never get there. Right. Because they do all and I just didn't give up, right? That was really the only thing that I didn't do from most people. I didn't give up. Most people would have given up by then because they never took action and they would never start their business, right? And so that would be my first one on, the things I wish I would have knew.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely.
What about you, Andy?
Comparable story, man. As you know, it took me 6 months to get my first deal. Okay. I had a PhD in real estate investing before I even sent my first piece of marketing.
Right.
So definitely taking action quicker because my 6 month learning curve, if you will, didn't start until I started sending marketing.
Right.
So you really can't. The knowledge applied is what's important. The knowledge is great. There's a time for knowledge. You know, when you first get started, you kind of need to know the basics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wouldn't say that you need to have a corporation set up. You don't need any of that stuff. You just need, you know, to know that this is a marketing and sales business. So I send out marketing. I get a call back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the rough guideline for, you know, what we need to talk about? Keep in mind, it's just a conversation.
Right.
You know, when I first started, that's one big thing that's changed.
Right.
You know, I'm not interviewing this person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just have a conversation with them, you know, talk to them. If they, you know, I'm actively listening now versus when I started, it was, you know, what's the next bullet point that I need to cover? You know, now I wouldn't be surprised if I don't miss a whole lot of information that may be valid, but I've built rapport with the seller. I know how to close the seller and I know what's important to them.
Right.
So, looking back, what drives results would be just, you know, getting a firm grasp on what your goal is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just starting, I would say that goal needs to be just one deal.
Right.
Forget about, you know, the ghost, forget about, you know, the cars,
Right.
the money, retiring, forget about all that stuff. It's just one deal.
Right. And
You know,
go ahead.
And your actions need to align with what it takes to get that deal. It's
Right.
not loving the result. You know, forget about the results. Let's figure out the process. Like what inputs do I need to make sure I do every day, day in and day out to get the result that I desire.
Right. And I think that's huge because that was a big one for me also, is not knowing how to set up goals, right? Is that, you know, my goal was, okay, I'm gonna get started in this thing and I'm gonna do like 20 deals a month. I'm gonna be like 40 different states, right? And I'm just gonna kill it, right? And it's gonna all happen in like 2-3 months,
Yeah,
right?
one of the primary whatever I don't even know what to say, but the primary identifiers of a goal is realistic and achievable.
Right.
You know, it has to be realistic and achievable. You're going to say at the end of year 2, I'm going to do 500 deals. Probably not, but let's focus on the next 90 days.
Right. And I tell you that the first one is, it's funny you say that. The first one was the life changer for me. I have it on the wall there in my office. And that was really the one that changed it for me, because then I knew that this thing was real, right? And that's when I knew, okay, now I can put some money into marketing, not because I have the money, but because I believe in it now, because it's done, right? And I see that in the eyes of people who show up even to our meetup, is that when we ask people to raise their hand, how many people have done at least a deal? How many people are raising their hand?
30%.
Right. And you see it in their eyes, is that they're looking at us, right? And they believe it. They believe us that we're doing deals and we've done a deal, right? But because they haven't done a deal, they're still not, maybe it doesn't work for them. It only works for us, right? And so getting that first deal is extremely important. That's why you can't procrastinate on the education, stall out, and not take action, because the quicker you get to that first deal, the quicker you're going to get your business rolling. Okay.
So would you say that you don't believe in education?
So I am a big believer in education.
But you just said that education doesn't matter. It's the action that matters. What's different? So
here's the thing about education, okay? And I can only speak from, you know, my point of view, right? Is that I went out and got a YouTube education, right? But the thing is that you have to apply it, I guess, is the part that I'm getting to. You got to take action from that education.
You mean you can't cut a $50,000 check and just sit back and wait?
No. And that's, I mean, that really, and I can tell you that sometimes that'll hurt people, right? And I saw that, right? I saw people cut $50,000 checks and they didn't even know like what a yellow letter was or a postcard. They had never talked to a seller. And the thing is, they thought that, and maybe I had this thought also. Like, I thought that if I signed up for something like that, that somebody was going to be like, okay, Undrea, let's go. And they like grab my hand and they take me over to the computer and say, this is how you do this, right? This is how you set up your marketing. Okay, come with me. Look, the phone's going to ring. Come with me. I'm going to take a phone call for you. All right, this is how you take a phone call. And they're just going to take me step by step by step, right? What education programs have you been of where they actually took your hand and say, come with me and watch me do this? Any?
None.
And where could I could have got that for free, actually. We're going to talk about that in the network.
Student.
Yeah, we're going to talk about networking and things like that. We could have got that part for free, right? But so when I look at the education part, it's like you don't need it for that, right? Because you're not going to get that through your education. The education is going to be for fine tuning. But you probably, for me, I can't speak for you because you started a little different from me, is I started with all the free stuff, and then you can fine tune as you start building your business, jump in some masterminds, things like that, and start really learning the business at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's my take on it. What about yourself?
Absolutely. So my opinion on education has shifted over the years, the first, I'd say 2.5 years or so in this business, I was so anti-education, it was ridiculous. I mean, that's where, part of where Wholesale Nation came from is we're going to give away the information for free. There's nothing that we hold back.
Right.
And, in our meetup month after month, that's what we do. Because it's the reality. The information is free. It should be free. It's the accountability, for me in education, in hindsight, that stroking that first $60,000 check may be the only reason that I'm still in this business. Because there were times in that first year and a half where it was hard,
right,
and it was lonely.
So you were invested.
I was invested,
right?
Yeah. So that may have been what kept me in the business. I don't know. As far as the information, it was great. The education was great, but there's a time for knowledge,
right? And
you don't need that MBA in real estate investing or wholesaling right from the get-go. You really need to know 2 or 3 things to get started. It's how to market, what properties are going for in your area, how to run ARV or after repair value, right, how the market responds to those, and then how to talk to sellers. Right. I mean, that's really all you need to know
right, for
your first year in this business. There's really nothing. There's nothing more.
Yeah.
All this, the strategies like sub-2s and wraps and owner financing and all that other stuff. I mean, that's just
that's cute. But
it's shiny objects that really don't help you build a business unless that is your model. I mean, if that's your model, that's one thing, but then you don't focus on wholesaling.
Right. And the only people that I know that's really their model is they are guru in that subject. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Other than that, I hadn't found many people they're like the sub-2 king and they're not selling it. Right.
Yeah.
It's it's incremental. Like it's something that you add, they're bolt-ons to your business to help you, monetize some of your leads so you can put more marketing out. But and whole rentals, things like that. But
in your first 6 months when you don't have a business, it's a distraction.
Yeah, it's a distraction.
When you don't have a team, it's a distraction.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, I just had somebody ask me that. I can't remember who. Someone asked me about sub-2s. And I'm like, why are you asking about that right now? Right. It's not the time. Okay. Yeah. So I agree with that. And so the first thing you said was marketing. Right. You need to know how to market. Right. And so for me, one of the things I wish I would have knew in the beginning is to focus on a marketing strategy and get good at it first before moving on to the other one. So when I started, after I watched all these 100 videos, I had my brain was like about to explode on marketing techniques and things to use, right? And so one of them was to send bandit signs. Another one was to jump on Craigslist and start putting ads on. The other one was direct mail, right? And then there was things, they was talking about PPC and things like that. So I jumped on all of them. I said, well, I might as well just do it all.
$500 a month and let me split this up 5 ways.
Yeah, I got 100 over there. I got 50 right there. So I just started spreading it around, right? So luckily I got my first deal through Craigslist. Okay. Now, could I have made like a living, like jumping, throwing stuff on Craigslist? Maybe, right? But it wasn't until I really started getting into bandit signs to where I started seeing deals. But I was taking bandit sign money and I started using some direct mail, right? And at that point, I was starting to really learn how to do bandit signs, okay? And eventually I learned, how to put out bandit signs, how often to put them out, where to put them, what was the best areas in the city to put the bandit signs so I can get the best response, right? And it wasn't until I got focused on that marketing channel, and I was known for that marketing channel because everyone saw my signs all across the Houston market, right? And Andy, I think you called my signs a few times, right?
Yeah, more than a couple of
years. I was like, okay, it's me again. You don't have to call me, right?
You kept changing up the numbers. Like, all right, it's a different number. Somebody's copying Undrea's signs.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I got focused on that until I really started seeing the revenue start coming in, and most of my deals were coming from bandit signs. And I saw that I was under $1,000 at one point per buy off of bandit signs because I got focused. Right. And so once I figured that out, I just focused on that one thing. Right. So every single week, bandit signs went out. Okay. And they went out to strategic areas because I was focused. So if I had to go back, that's what I would have just, from day one, I would have just went just all in, bandit signs, and learned all the ins and outs of that marketing channel before I moved into the other ones.
Okay. So
right?
you said one word a number of times, and that was focus.
Right.
So that's one thing for myself, and I know you and I have talked offline about how much that word has impacted our business, you know, independently, together. You know, you can't say enough about focus. So all these shiny objects, the education, the social media presence is a big one for a lot of people now. You've got social media gurus that have never done a deal. Those things bother me now, because you know that they would have a much better chance of succeeding if they would just focus on what would generate the results that they desire.
Right.
And so one thing that we both experienced is, you know, we were both doing everything in our businesses. So we were, you know, both. You had recently taken my lead manager.
Right.
So, you know, I was left with nobody. I actually had Corey working for me at the time. So it was, you know, I had 2 people, you had 2 people, and we were doing decent volume.
Right.
You know, especially for solopreneurs.
Right.
Once we partnered up, you know, and one of the conversations that we had, you know, at the Black Walnut Cafe was, look, you know, we're not going to partner up if 1 + 1 = 2. And we were both on the same page. You know, I don't want to just take what I'm doing and doubling it. If we're going to partner up,
the math just doesn't make sense.
It needs to at least equal 3.
Right.
And I'm in awe still at how quickly that happened once we started to you know, work together.
Right.
I focused on sales, you focused on marketing and basically everything else. You know, I was just going to go meet with the sellers. And, you know, we had, I think it was in mid-August. And then from mid-August till the end of the year, we did 40 deals.
Right.
We were both on pace to do roughly 40 deals the whole year.
Yeah.
And then we did that in 3 months.
Right.
I mean, that's the power of focus right there.
Right.
So it's specialization. It's you know, you were focused. You got the marketing dialed in. You know, you were working with Michelle on the lead management. You know, there was a lot of dispositions as well at the time, and we took another step when we hired Daniel. Right. You know, because you could pull that off your plate, and then we had somebody just focused on selling the properties. Right. Our sales revenue went through the roof just from there. We went from, you know, an average of 82% to like 85 or 86%. I don't remember the time, but it was a pretty significant jump to the bottom line just by having somebody that was able to focus on it. Right. And so over the next, you know, 6 months or so, we played this game called Fire Undrea, and it just kept getting better. Right. So you can attribute that all to, and I would attribute it all to the power of focus. You know, you didn't have to worry about the seller appointments, following up, you know, making sure that a good offer was placed. And quite honestly, I leaned on you a lot the first 6 months. You know, there was a number of phone calls saying like, I would never be able to sell this house at this. Right. And, you know, I'm thinking, I remember that, through the eyes of a flipper, and you're like, no, man, I could sell that for $20,000 more than that. It's like, whoa. Yeah.
And that's actually another one. I mean, probably don't have time to talk about that, but you know, when you first started, you were looking through the lens of a flipper. Yeah, as if I was buying everything. Yeah, and so you were, you know, passing up deals because of it, right? And you know, when you got down like what are people actually buying, right? And that's when you would call me and say, hey, what do you think about this one? I'm like, yeah, lock it up, we're good to go. And you're like, I don't know, man, this is a piece of trash, right?
Oh man, this thing's only worth $80,000. It needs $40,000 in work. You're telling me we could pay 20? Right. What?
And then it sells, right? Yeah. And so what I get from that is scaling the business. Yep. Right. And so what I look at is that was really one of the things that I wish I would have seen earlier. Right. So I won't even, so you cover that part. So I won't go through the whole of, I wish I would have brought people on sooner and things like that, but not being afraid to do it, I think. But I would say for me now is, you know, as we've continued to scale the business and we've done it time and time again, the things I wish I would have done when I first got started is from day one, write down your processes, right? Write things down, how you do it, right? And it will make it much easier when you start hiring people, right? So whether you record yourself, whatever your process from going out and seeing salespeople, not salespeople, but seeing sellers, write your process down, right? Whatever your process is for completing a transaction, right? It's going to be your process. Right. So write down how you want that to be done. Like if you've done some deals, start writing it down. Then what happens is when you start bringing team members on, right, it'll be so much easier to train them when you at least have a guideline. Like, this is my steps on doing things, right? And you don't have to wait till they're in place to start doing that, because that really slows you down, right? Yeah. And so one of the things I look at now is that, and we did this with our other, we had an admin who wasn't quite the best admin, but she did help, put down some processes that I wanted to get down. And one of them was with our transaction coordinator, right? I wanted to make sure that we had a repeatable process, something that we can follow. And I almost forgot that we had all this down. I went to the folder and I was like, I forgot we did this already, right? So when we hired our new transaction coordinator, I didn't have to go back to square one and say, okay, well, this is how we do this, this, and this. I was able to provide him with a checklist of how we do things to help speed up the learning curve, right? And so I would definitely encourage you, which I didn't do in the beginning, was document your process right now as if you're getting ready to train the person to replace you. Okay. Yeah.
Can't say that I agree wholeheartedly.
Right.
I respectfully disagree too a little bit.
All right. Tell me what you got.
I think the reason why I agree is because you need to consciously have a process.
Right.
This is what I'm doing with intention.
Right.
You really don't need that until it's time to scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are you hear the buzzword, and the reason really the only reason I'm disagreeing is because of the buzzword systems.
Right.
That buzzword's thrown out there constantly. It really doesn't have meaning until you start to scale.
Right.
So until you start to do something over and over again, you are the system. You are the employee that's doing it. I do agree that if you do document it, then you have to be consciously thinking about what you do with intention.
Right.
Which I do agree with 100%. So
yeah,
I guess long story short, I do agree.
So at the end of the day, basically what he's saying is he agrees, right? and everyone heard that, and so that's basically what it boils down to. So he agrees. So
you're right.
Basically,
it's
when you're scaling your business, not in this. It's when you're thinking about scaling your business, because at the end of the day, it's just like when you're having meetings and things like that we have now. You still got to have that meeting with yourself, right? How many people did I go see, Andre? How many sellers did I talk to this week? All right. What are my KPIs? Right. Then I walk over into my next seat and I look at myself through my disposition lens and I say, how many buyers did I pull in this week? Right. So you start talking to yourself in all these seats. And that way, when you get ready to put somebody in that seat, right, you already know what to ask that person. Right. Yeah, and you know how to train them properly. Okay. All right. So what else? What else would you say?
Well, I mean, as far as the power of focus, I would say forget about TC and dispositions.
Right.
It's a marketing and sales business. Until you're doing, let's call it 4 to 5 deals a month.
Right.
That part of your business really doesn't matter.
Right.
From our experience, at least here in the Houston market, there's a number of very experienced wholesalers, ourselves included, that will help you.
Right.
We've outsourced our transaction coordinating to wholesalers so they can focus on, buy more deals.
Yeah.
That start and stop for me, transaction coordinating was like the plague. Like, I hated it.
Right.
Because a 30-minute task would take me 3 hours because it would just be like warming up to it for 45 minutes. And then after I was done, I was like, I'm going to go get some ice cream, or I'm going to go get a smoothie, or, go walk my dog or do something. It was like I was rewarding myself for doing something that I didn't want to do.
Right.
But the transaction coordinating dispositions, I think if you just focus on marketing and sales in your first 6 months to a year, at least until you're doing 4 to 5 deals a month, you're really not leaving anything on the table.
But Andy, they always talk about working backwards.
Go build your buyer's list.
Go build your buyer's list first, right? And then once your buyers know what you need, you can go shop. But that's what I hear over and over. Does that not apply?
I don't think so.
Right. So we're in a different market, guys, right? Maybe your market's different from ours, right? But 3 or 4 or 5 10 years ago, maybe some of these people that are talking about this, right? The market was a lot different. First of all, there wasn't things like Facebook groups and things like that, and there's so many different ways to be able to sell your deals and to source your deals and things like that. You got to go and find a deal, right? Go find you a deal first. Don't worry about that the buyer's list. Just like Andy said, there's other wholesalers that can help you with this, right? I did learn this early on, right? Because I went out and I met with another big wholesale company here in the market, and they were able to help me sell some properties that today I look at would have been easy to sell, but then it would have took all my focus away, because I would have been like hunting, trying to find buyers for these 2 properties that I had. And then there were 2 properties also, so my buyers list couldn't hold much. But I would have been focused on trying to sell those properties, get them all done, and I wouldn't have been focused on that first thing, like you said, is going out and continue to market and to continue to talk to sellers and get more in my pipeline versus just dealing with finding a buyer. So different market, and your market may be different from ours, but you can probably find somebody. I'm pretty sure you can find someone who can sell your property.
In every market.
Right.
There's got to be.
Yeah. Go collect the cash first, and then you can go and start, adding people to your team that can come and do that kind of stuff for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Outsource dispositions, outsource transaction coordinating. Why not?
Right.
Until you can afford to bring it in house.
Right.
We both did that.
Yeah. Yeah, I outsourced it, right? And and luckily that I did have we were a part of a mastermind, I guess, or education group here in the Houston market, and that was one of the takeaways, right? I sat down and I was like, well, who should I bring on first? And they was like, we need to get a transaction coordinator. I was like, well, shoot, I can't really afford a transaction coordinator. What does that cost, right? And so I outsourced it.
Yeah,
right.
$500 a file.
Took a lot off my plate. I didn't have to deal with that. I didn't have to go run across town for documents and things like that. I could focus on bringing more deals in, right? So I can get the transaction coordinator more deals, and things were lovely. Okay. But that also takes me to, we talk about the power of network.
Yep.
Okay. And so with you, what are the things you wish you would have known when it comes down to a network?
Well, for me, hands down, the coolest part of this business is I get to work with people I like.
Mm-hmm.
I get to choose who I work with.
Right.
It is a pretty big community here in Houston.
Right.
Really, it's a small community, but it's a community of investors. There's people that are doing business, and you start to get to know each other. And
right.
It's pretty cool to get to work with people that you like. I mean, I think that's pretty awesome. You and I met through the mastermind, and we started spending a bunch of time together, and you start to build your 5. It's amazing how fast, my circle changed when I just dove into this business. The people I started hanging out with had different mindsets, and I quit relating to a lot of my old friends that were, on the 9-to-5 high paying jobs, guys
right.
that are making 6 figures, but they go to work,
right.
they live and breathe their work, but then they go home, and
you had nothing in common with them anymore. Right.
Right. If they died this weekend, like this seller on this property that just died Saturday,
wow. Yeah,
their job's going to replace them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And, it's very different when you start to build your network of people around you, because that are, going through the same struggles as you. They're going to, iron sharpens iron, so they can help you, sharing best practices. I've enjoyed being transparent with small network of people about like all my struggles. Like, I mean, you heard about it,
right.
Back when we started masterminding, some of the things that I was dealing with. I think that's awesome. You don't see that in other industries. You've got competition, not collaboration. And in this market, in this industry, there's a lot of collaboration around. I really, really like that.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. And that's a part that I love about it, right? Is that, I wish even sooner I would have got out. And I was looking at like some old, I was on Bigger Pockets and things like that, right? And I was showing Andy, or maybe I was talking about it, I wasn't showing, but I was talking about some of the communication I had with some of the people here in the Houston market. Right. And, now, of course, I know all these guys that I was talking to, but I was the newbie. I was like, hey, I've done I think I had done like 7 deals when I first started talking. And I was like, I've done 7 deals, trying to really learn, would like to kind of, pick your brain. Right. And when I sent that message, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't think anybody was going to respond, but every person that I sent a message to responded.
Yep.
Okay. And had I known when I first got started, just go and talk to people, right? Talk to people that are in this business, that are where you want to be. So if you're in wholesaling, go find somebody who's doing some deals here in the Houston market. Provide some value to them also, right? Maybe there's something you can do for them to be able to help them out. But at the end of the day, I hadn't found anybody that's just been like, I don't want to tell you anything, or I'm not going to give you information. Everyone just gives you the information for free, just like we're doing here, right? So the information is out there. My thing is just go find out and talk to people. Yeah.
Get it. Yeah, there's a lot of people in this industry that want to be the person that they wish they had when they started.
Right.
There's just an endless supply of those people. You do have to question who you're talking to, because there are some people with some motives that maybe you don't want to associate with, or maybe a background that you don't want to associate with. But
hopefully you'll smell them out pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
You'll sniff them out pretty soon.
There's really not a lot about it.
Right.
Really not a lot, especially if you're like in the network of, wholesalers. You have a tendency to know who's who and who's doing what. And,
right.
There's really no hiding, and why hide it? Everybody's got struggles.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help and willing to give.
Right. Yeah. And if you can't find them, jump on Facebook. You'll see them there, right? Go to a RIA meeting. That's a couple of things that I didn't do right in the beginning. I just went to like one because that was the only one that I knew about. But really getting out there and getting into the meetings, not to just sit there and be the student, right?
Yeah.
But to go talk to the people that are in there, the people who are in the front of the room talking, go shake their hand, get to know them. Right. I remember one of our, the guys that Derek Morrell being one of them. I remember the first time I actually met him, he had spoke at the Rich Club. Right. Mm-hmm. And so my thing was to just, this is the guy that's in front of the stage. I'm going to go introduce myself. Right.
Ooh, I never do that.
So if you hadn't done that,
you should
go talk to the person. Start there if that's where you need to start afterwards. Like be there to shake their hand, get to know them, spend some time with them. And guess what? He was part of the crew that we went with, when I started to look into scaling the business, right? And because we ended up building a relationship and kind of working together. So yeah, get out there and network.
Wholesale Nation Facebook page.
Right.
It's another great community to go ask questions and go build some relationships.
Right. So love the plug. So if you hadn't had a chance to go onto the Wholesale Nation Facebook group, and there we were able to share some information, but it's a good place to get to know other wholesalers, things like that. But yeah, go on there, check it out. That's where you can contact us the best way. Also, this podcast, we're on show number 21, right? So we would appreciate it if you go out. As you listen to it, like and subscribe. If you like what you hear, don't forget to tell your friends about it so that they can listen as well. Okay.
Show number 21. Does that mean we get drinks?
Yeah, I guess so. We're 21. Yeah, I don't know how that works, but it could. But any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, that's it. I mean, just learn from your experiences. Keep failing. Fail forward. Keep moving. I mean, that's probably the people that succeed are relentless because this entrepreneurship is a roller coaster.
Right.
That's for damn sure.
Right. That is for damn sure. So for everyone that's out there, the main part of what I got out of this is just take action at the end of the day, right? Take action. Go get things done. But that wraps it for the show. All right. Y'all come back now. You hear?